Joining me with the stories of the morning, 5 Live presenter Matt Chorley is right here, along with our Dr Amir. And we are continuing that discussion on assisted dying. It's back in the headlines again with changes to the new proposed law. And Matt, this is all about, I guess, trying to find out who decides at the end of the day.
Yeah, so you'll remember this was all debated last year. This is a backbench bill, so it's not the government doing this. This is one MP called Kim Ledbetter. And what was planned when she put it forward to Parliament last year and MPs voted it through to the next stage was that ultimately a High Court judge would have to sign it off as a sort of last backstop on it. And the change that she's talking about making to the legislation would remove the High Court judge and create a panel of, you'd have social workers, psychiatrists on it. The idea being that the people in favour of this change say this would they are better placed to basically tell are they eligible for because you have to be judged to be someone who might die within the next 6 months. The various criteria you have to meet, and have they been coerced? Because there's this concern that family members might say to a relative, "Have you thought about doing this?" and sort of try and talk them into it. The argument against this is that about 60 odd MPs who voted for the bill had previously said the High Court judge was one of the reasons why they were supporting it. They thought this was much tougher than lots of other countries. Others say, actually, psychiatrists and social workers might be better able to judge who has been coerced or talked into it. On the way in this morning, I've been busy doing work, Lorraine, texting lots of MPs. Some have told me they're fine with this. They still think that this is the right thing to do. Others are a bit wavery, and others basically haven't read into it. This has got quite a long way to go yet. We won't get the big vote till April. I wouldn't be surprised to see some switching, but you need about 30, almost 30 MPs who voted for it last year to change their minds for this not to go through. But I'd say it's still got quite a long way to go.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, social workers are stretched as it is, and my worry would be that that's adding.
Well, yeah, but one of the arguments was that the courts were stretched. So there might not be High Court judges. So then you bump it onto social workers and so. I think this is the problem. And because it's not a government bill, it's not a government plan, we don't really know where the resources are coming from. I interviewed Rachel Reeves before Christmas and asked her several times, if this passes, will you stump up the money for it? Because there will be a cost somewhere.
Of course there will,
And she just said, look, it's nothing to do with us. It's we'll worry about that further down the road. So there will definitely be a cost, whether it's NHS, psychiatrists, social workers, judges. There's every part of that, they are overstretched.
No, of course. And Dr Amir, I mean, you've spent a lot of time with people who are at the end of their life. What do you think?
Yeah, I think questions around dying are as complex as they come when it comes to ethics. And it's really important that any debate is nuanced and sensitive and not polarised, because every individual case is different. And there is the very real and legitimate concern around coercion, particularly with those living with disabilities or vulnerable groups of people. I have been there, Lorraine, when my patients have been end of life. I've sat by their bedsides when they've taken their last breath. And yes, absolutely, there are some conditions, no matter what you do, where the last few days can feel like a really cruel test of endurance. But there are many, many other conditions where good quality, high standard palliative end-of-life care alleviates sufferings, and the questions of ending life doesn't come into their heads. And I think that's the key part for me in this conversation. Currently, and I don't think many people know this, only 25 to 30% of hospice care is NHS funded. The rest is funded through charity, bake sales, car boot sales, that kind of thing, fun runs. And I think that needs to change. We need to really invest in palliative care so we can give patients a good death. And I think then any debate that happens or any decisions that happens, no matter who's making it, whether it's the panel or the High Court, can answer the question, have we done everything we possibly can to the best possible standard for this patient, or have we done everything we can within the constraints of the resources we have? Because those are two very different questions.
Yeah, at least we're having the conversation about it, which for a long, long time we weren't. And Amir's absolutely right. It's one of these really difficult things about legislation, because each case is going to be different, isn't it?
And I think when you look at polls, the public overwhelmingly support assisted dying.
Yes.
But when you take, would you like to have the choice? People say yes. How do you write that in law to protect everyone in every circumstance? And that's the process that MPs are going through right now.
Exactly, it is. Well, I mean, as you said, we've got a long way to go with this. We'll certainly be talking about it again, that's for sure. New research this morning, it's in the Times. Gen Z are not proud of Britain and wouldn't fight to save it, is the kind of headline. Amir, half of those asked, they thought, well, actually, sorry, Amir, I'll talk to Matt about that first, because Gen Z, that's what, 18 to 27?
Yes, so people born between 1997 and 2012. So you and I are just outside this group.
Just,
very,
you know,
yeah.
quite annoying, really, that we're not that. Now, I would imagine it depends who you ask.
Yes, so 41% said they were proud to be British. Only 15% said they thought the country was united. And like you said, only 1 in 10 said they would risk their lives to defend it in a war.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that the Times did this similar thing 20 years ago. So we have actually got a bit of a shift.
Oh, that's interesting.
So previously, 80% said they were proud to be British, which is almost twice as many today. Almost 60% said the country was united last time. So that's come down massively. So there does seem to have been a shift.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, what this cohort have been through, the financial crisis and all the fallout of that, COVID and all the fallout of that, and the sort of this is the people coming, into adulthood right now, and the prospect of going to university, getting a job, buying a house, moving out of your parents' back bedroom and all of that. It's not a surprise they might think, oh, things aren't quite so hunky-dory.
No,
when you compare it to, the turn of the millennium,
there's more optimism.
Hope is changing.
Yeah, there was more optimism and more hope. It's really sad. And Amir, I know one of the things that you were very worried about, half of this generation thought that Britain was racist. They thought that. I mean, what do you take from that?
Yeah, it's really difficult for me to talk about these kind of things, Lorraine, because every time I do, I get a huge backlash. But I think it's really important that we're honest. I'm brown. I identify as Muslim. I work in the NHS, and if I'm being really honest with you, this is the most uncomfortable I've ever felt in the country that I was born in and grew up in. And I think if I feel like that, lots of other people will be feeling like that. And that's certainly the case when I talk to my family and friends about these kind of conversations. A lot of it is driven by political and media conversations around national identity, immigration, diversity, and sowing divisions that way. And also this idea that Britishness is being more and more equated to whiteness. And that makes me feel really uncomfortable as someone who does identify as British. And I think it's really important that we remind people what immigration does. If we look at the clinical staff within the NHS, 42% of them are people from historically marginalised backgrounds, whether that's first, second or third generation. And we talked about COVID there very briefly. The reason why a disproportionate number of people of colour from disproportionate marginalised backgrounds died during COVID is because many of them had jobs that meant they couldn't work from home, essential worker jobs, whether that was in the NHS or care, transport, in shops, the things that kept this country going. So when I hear these debates around diversity, around kind of British identity and Britain losing its identity, for me, Britain's identity is all about inclusivity and diversity. And it has to be, there might be this uncomfortable truth around colonisation and decolonisation, but the reason Britain is what it is because of colonisation, because of the wealth it extracted from those countries. And lots of people watching this will be, well, I wasn't involved in that. I didn't get involved in slavery, but we continue to have the benefits of those things, whereas the countries who did have their wealth extracted, who were colonised, continue to pay a very high price. So it's a difficult debate to have, and I know lots of people will have lots of opinions on it, but I can only tell you about my personal experience, and I feel very, very vulnerable right now.
No, you're right. And I'm actually genuinely upset that you feel like that, because that's not the way that we want to be going. That's not the direction we want to be going in.
And what's so depressing is that actually our politics and Parliament, I'll be in Parliament this morning,
of course,
is more diverse than ever.
Yes.
So it has actually changed and better reflects the country.
Yeah, but
the political conversation is different.
People are not feeling it, and that's really sad. Well, that's a wrap for this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We have all the best moments from the show right here on the channel, and if you like this video, then we think you'll love this one. See you next time.